Let's start in Niger, where Islamic militants have claimed responsibility for Thursday's deadly attack on army barracks and a French-run mine. As the CTV's Clementine Logan reports, the MUJWA militant group says the coordinated assaults were in retaliation for the French-led offensive against Islamist insurgents in neighbouring Mali.
The bloody aftermath of a deadly attack. The suicide bombers coordinated assaults which targeted a military base in Agadez and a French-run uranium mine in Arlit claimed the lives of 21 people and wounded dozens more, one a 14-year-old girl hit by a stray bullet. Nigerian soldiers living at the Agadez barracks secured the area after a fierce gun battle that killed at least 20 of their comrades when suicide bombers attacked their base. The assault on the French-run mine was a deliberate attempt to disrupt a vital part of France's energy supply chain, in what Mujwa and Al-Qaeda's North African wing Akim have said was a pledge to strike at French interests across the region. This after Paris launched a ground and air campaign in January, which broke their 10-month grip over parts of northern Mali. And behind these latest attacks is the Mujwa militant group. In retaliation, they say, for the French-led offensive against Islamist insurgents in neighbouring Mali. Niger's Defence Minister Mamadou Karijo arrived at Agadez airport on Thursday afternoon and said the situation was under control. But for many, it's a worrying sign that militant violence is spreading in West Africa and suggests some Malian groups, in spite of the French campaign, are still capable of complex strikes against high-profile targets in remote parts of the vast Sahara. Clementine Logan, CCTV.
With us now is CCTV's Kate Parkinson. She's live in the French capital, Paris. Kate, has there been any reaction from the French government to this attack, especially since it had given assurances that it would help Niger beef up its domestic security?
First of all, in case you're wondering why I'm by the sea, I'm actually not in Paris. I'm in the south of France at the moment. But yes, I have been monitoring this story as it develops, and France has strongly condemned these attacks. The French President Francois Hollande has said that Paris will not stop in its efforts to assist the Niger authorities to try and stop these groups carrying out attacks in Niger and indeed in other countries. But as we just heard in that report, this is a worrying sign that the militant groups that France was battling to end their grip in Mali and it does claim to have been pretty successful in pushing them out. It does show that they are capable of carrying out attacks elsewhere in the region, and it's a worrying sign for not only for France but also for Mali and all of its neighbouring countries. What we're likely to see now is France stepping up the security of its own interests and its own civilians in the West African region, and also, as I say, providing support to Niger's security forces to prevent this happening again.
Indeed. The French nuclear reactor maker Riva, of course, does run the affected mine. Looking in the long term, what impact is this attack likely to have on trade and business interests between these two countries?
Well, first of all, in the short term, we are definitely going to see an impact. The plant has ceased operations, and I spoke to Arriva this morning. They say they're still assessing the damage and they can't say exactly when they will resume operations at this plant. So in the short term, we're definitely going to see an effect on both sides. After all, Niger is responsible for 20% of France's uranium needs to power its nuclear plants. And it's not only owned by the French group Arriva. This is also 36% of this plant is owned by the Niger state. So we are going to see effects on both sides in the short term. In the long term, it's unlikely we'll see any long-lasting effects. Arriva have been operating in Niger for more than 40 years, and actually this isn't the first time that this plant has been targeted by Islamist groups. In September 2010, 7 Arriva workers and a subcontractor were taken hostage, 4 of those still actually being held by Islamist groups. And so Niger and France have experienced this before, and it's unlikely that we'll see any drastic measures taken by Niger, certainly because they have worked closely with the French on their operation in Mali. So it's unlikely that we'll see any long-lasting trade or business difficulties between the two countries.
Indeed. We'll have to leave it there for the time being. That's Kate Parkinson in the southern end of France in gorgeous, gorgeous Cannes. Thank you very much for her time. Now, let's move on to matters on the Pan-African front. It was the 5th Pan-African Congress held in England in 1945 that pushed Pan-Africanism as a political tool for decolonization of the African continent as a whole. Now, although Pan-Africanism as a concept has been a collective goal for the African continent, it appeared to have lost steam in the 1970s until now. Here's what a few leaders think about keeping that dream alive and well.
The theme of this year's AU Summit is Pan-Africanism and the African Renaissance. Question is just how realistic are these objectives? So what we did is we set up our camera here in the lobby of the AU headquarters in Addis Ababa and gave people a chance to come and give us their views on the subject.
To me, I feel Pan-Africanism and African Renaissance should be a welcome idea. It's good, the motive wonderful, but the challenge I have is how willing are we to run with this vision? Because it's not an easy thing, actually. You know, so many things are put in place, so many things will have to come in place. You have to relinquish power, you have to come together as an African Union, the AU now, as a country. I'm from Nigeria. How willing, for example, my country is willing to submit its authority to the African Union?
Well, it's as realistic for this continent as it would be for anybody else, I think. I think we're not different from any other continent that wants to move ahead. Africa is developing at a very fast pace. I think you know that. I think about 17 of the fastest growing countries are on the continent, and therefore we need to prepare for all that, and we need to get together, discuss how we can actually expedite our economic development, what values we hold dear, and how these values can actually drive Africa forward.
You are trying to rethink Africa. You're trying to put yourself in a way in which you are very realistic with the past, and you also want to see what the present is, but more so to build a better future for Africa. And that's why, in the context of the title Pan-Africanism and African Renaissance, the Commission has prepared a very elaborate and a transformative medium-term program.
I think we cannot say Africa has not done much for the children. There has been a lot of improvement, particularly the education sector. Almost the universal education, Africa will meet the Millennium Development Goals. Where we are off track is child mortality, reducing child mortality.
So while it's clear that there are still some challenges that need to be met, the overriding factor is the confidence from our speakers that the objectives set by the African Union will be met. Robert McGillis, CCTV at the AU headquarters.
And we'll certainly have more content from the African Union for you right here at 1700 GMT. 10 minutes into the hour, though, it's time for a short break. Here's what's coming up. Empowering citizens. We'll tell you why the UN Secretary General feels that peace by itself won't help the people of the eastern DRC. Africa's top leaders making decisions that will shape the future. Tackling the challenges of a rising continent. Nurturing the Pan-African dream and celebrating an African Renaissance. CCTV Africa brings you comprehensive coverage of the 21st African Union Summit and the 50th anniversary celebrations of the Organization of African Unity. The 21st AU Summit, from the 24th to the 27th of May, every day at 1000 and 1700 GMT, only on CCTV Africa. Welcome back. Security must go hand in hand with development. Not my words, but rather those of the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. He made those comments during a visit to the troubled city of Goma in the eastern end of the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Continuing their visit to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and Jim Yong Kim, President of the World Bank, were in Goma, in the eastern part of the country. While visiting the Heal Africa hospital that treats victims of sexual violence, the UN chief expressed his frustration on the dire situation.
I'm very angry that women and girls have to endure such barbarity here and anywhere. This must stop.
World Bank President Jim Yong Kim said there was need to bring long-term real justice, with development being key to moving forward.
We are bringing $1 billion extra, and we just want everyone to know, the people who are trying to help, the people who are trying to bring about development and peace, we say we're with you.
Ban Ki-moon said the World Bank as well as the UN were determined to support the peace and development that would benefit the people of the DRC and the Great Lakes region. The World Bank has lined up a number of projects for the region. The UN chief has now urged leaders in the DRC to work together to realize a better life for the citizens. Talks between the DRC government and M23 rebels have stalled in recent weeks. Last Monday, they attacked government positions and resumed fighting after a nearly 6-month-long truce. Maria Galang, CCTV.
Over in North Africa, Egypt's president has appealed to the opposition there for unity, more so in the face of criticism that he's failing the revolution that brought him to power. Our correspondent there, Yasser Hakim, now looks at the political environment President Mohamed Morsi has to work in.
To all those who love Egypt, to the opposition, those who love this country and care for its interests, let's proceed together, help each other, love each other more, and move forward.
The call for unity by President Morsi as the kidnapping incident unfolds in Sinai reflects the huge divisions that have swept through Egypt after the revolution and continued after Morsi came to power. The opposition criticized the president of favoritism towards the Muslim Brotherhood, especially in policies, appointment of government officials and ministers. The political instability has added more burden on the economy, already suffering since the revolution, but the Muslim Brotherhood blames the opposition for the deteriorating situation.
The
opposition intentionally create chaos and violence in the streets to hinder progress and show that the president is a failure. When the president invited them for dialogue several times, they boycotted.
One sign of the dissatisfaction with the leadership is the Tamarrud or rebellion campaign, which calls for ousting the president and has gathered over 2 million signatures in 1 month.
We are planning to gather at least 15 million signatures for Morsi to step down because he proved that he is only loyal to his Muslim Brotherhood and not the country.
The ruling party says this campaign is a sign of weakness, not strength.
If they can do so, then they shall do it through elections, not signatures. Islamists can gather more than 15 million signatures, but we won't do it because it's unconstitutional. Elections are the legal form of expression, and the opposition know they will fail in any election.
Either way, the normal citizen in the street needs to feel stability and improvement in his life, away from political divisions. The message of unity by the president looks encouraging to many. Analysts hope that his words would be followed up by action this time so that the country would return to normalcy. This is Yasser Hakim for CCTV, Cairo.
Over in Southern Africa, following the signing into law of Zimbabwe's new constitution, expectations are now high in the Southern African country of a potential new era. On Wednesday this week, the country's veteran leader, Robert Gabriel Mugabe, appended his signature to the draft charter. As CCTV's Farai Makutua now reports, ordinary Zimbabweans are now quite optimistic that the country can move forward to the general elections which are pending on the horizon.
After more than 4 years in the making, Zimbabweans now have a new constitution. From what we've heard on the streets of Harare, the wait has been worth it. this is what it means to ordinary Zimbabweans.
It means we have got the capacity to make our own decisions and to make our own future.
I'm very happy about the new constitution because it presents a better future for the younger generation and for women who can now be more empowered.
The pride in achieving this milestone without external influences resonating across Zimbabwean society. However, analysts caution that the country needs to take the next step from having a new constitution to upholding it. The true test of constitutionality will come when Zimbabweans go to cast their ballots.
As we move towards these elections, why don't we maintain the same spirit of cooperation, the same spirit that says we are all Zimbabweans? There is more that unites us than that which divides us.
The mandate of Zimbabwe's 4-year national unity government is set to expire on June 29th. The cash-strapped government has already conceded there is no money to hold elections. Earlier this year, funding from the United Nations was rejected for unacceptable conditions, and now Zimbabwe is waiting on regional neighbors and proposed tax increases to come to the rescue.
The holding of elections was dependent on a new constitutional dispensation. Now that that is out of the way, Zimbabweans are still not sure when they'll go to the polls. Funding for the crucial elections, which must be held this year, still in limbo. Farai Mwakutuya, CCTV, Harare, Zimbabwe.